Confluence podcast, listeners, where soul meets strategy and where we explore the mystical currents shaping our modern world. Now, today we are diving deep into a question that's reshaping the way women build, lead, and rise. Can business be sacred? And in a world which is obsessed with hustle, perfection, and performance, we are inviting in something far more radical spirituality in business. And who better to guide us than Amore Roux, a powerhouse founder, voice for sober, soulful rebellion, and the creator of Kathara, a heart led community for women who dare to feel it all and still rise. From addiction and rock bottom on the open seas to a global movement rooted in purpose. Amore's story is not just inspiring listeners, it is deeply relatable because sometimes the woman you are waiting for is you. So get ready to unpack the truth about healing, sacred entrepreneurship, and what it means to build from your scars, not in spite of them, but because of them. So let's quickly begin. So, Amore, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Um, Amore, of course, let's start with your journey. Um,
Mm.
if you can share where it all started, um, and how it led you to build Kathara. I mean, everything. I know it's a long one, but if we can summarize.
Loaded question. um, yeah, I think of course, my story is long, going from childhood to preteen and teenagers, and then into adulthood. And as with everyone, they've got a story to tell, and there's people that play a part in your role and how you were growing up. And there was a common theme in my life from when I was young. And my mom and my dad divorced at a young age. My dad left, and my mom had some mental problems that was challenging for her to deal with throughout my childhood. And so I was the only child between my mom and my dad. And so the feeling of being alone and sort of abandoned and feeling a bit lost and not knowing where I belong was a big theme in my life. And that sort of carried on continuously through my teenagers. We moved around a lot. I got bullied. Um, kind of carried on like that, where I had a alcoholic stepfather, and my dad remarried, and I kept really not knowing my place in the world, as my mom and my dad were sort of moving on with their new lives, and I was just kind of feeling like I didn't really know, feeling very lost. And I started holding on to bad coping mechanisms like alcohol and cigarettes. And I started controlling my food intake and got an eating disorder. And then, like that goes into like going late into teens. So then you start, boys start becoming a thing and then controlling that. And I got like love addiction and dependencies, codependencies because of that. And then I started cutting myself and really just finding ways to try and make sense of my place in the world. And I moved around again. And it was just always this theme of like, where do I fit in? I feel alone. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. And I feel so different than because we were kept moving around and my mom and my dad were so different. And or like, like my mom was quite different from and my dad was quite different from my peers as parents. So I just felt like I was quite different and I kind of stood out. And that made me just feel even more alone because I just didn't know where I belonged. And so, especially when you then have troubled childhood and things happening, then you kind of just feel like, I don't know where to turn. And I think because you just didn't have a really good indication in society to what to do as a child, where to go, and how to find help, it's you sort of go to your friends and you go to drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and things like that. So that was where I went, and that continued until I was late into my 20s. And it just got more and more worse, then drugs got involved and then more drugs got involved, and it just became this escape for me, always trying to fill this hole that I was having inside, which I now have called a God-shaped hole, and it's this feeling of, like, that you can stuff it with anything, but never is anything enough, and you can, um and that just continued until I eventually had a really bad car accident at 25, drunk driving. And from there, I just started realizing, okay, I need to start taking responsibility for my life because I felt like such a victim of my life instead of feeling like I had any control over it or there was anything that I could do about it because I just felt so powerless. And I had to start realizing that I was the one that is in charge here and I need to take responsibility and then no one is coming to save me. I need to eventually get my little ducks in the row. And from there on, I still didn't get sober for a few years. I carried on. I got a bank loan after my car accident because I wrote the card off, but I was in so much debt. So I had to like get another loan to then try and get overseas so I can make some money because I didn't have a university degree and I just didn't ever have an education and I had nothing really supporting me. So very lost, very lone. And through that, I eventually, at 2019, I got sober and I was in my rock bottom and I had a massive rock bottom moment. And I just realized it's now or never. I need to sort my stuff out. And I started taking action every day, step by step, day by day, doing the steps in AA, and through that found a lot of self-awareness, self-understanding, a lot of forgiveness for others, a lot of humility, and a big ego death, I think. And then, yeah, my story sort of became from there. And since then, I've just been on this mission of really living life on my terms, which was always sort of the the underlying thread. I just knew that I was different. I knew that I was wanting to live a life that was different. And my spirituality was always a big part of my life, but I didn't really know what that meant when I was younger because I felt so alone and I didn't really know how my spirituality was a part of something that would be able to help me. um, and now obviously it's very different now. My spirituality is a key part that plays a key role in any of my decision making. I always, if I'm confused, I just ask God to take over because yeah, I can't run on my own self-will. But yeah, so eventually after a few years of trying to find my own way and trying different things, I realized that I just wanted to create a safe space for women to know that they are not alone, that they have somewhere to go where they can feel like they belong, where their stories are when shameful stories are told in safe places, you can really have a lot of liberation and freedom from your pain, and doing it together is really the key part that was so vital in my success. In my story was my support, the groups that I had around me, the friends I had around me, the people that was really played a vital role in me staying on a good road and on a sober road and trying to sort my life out. So I decided, well, Kathara has to be that, and I just needed to build something that was sustainable and long lasting, and where women can find fun in their personal growth and just know that there's no judgment. We're all in this together, and we all feel like there's so many things that we're trying to hide from the world, and it's in sharing our stories vulnerably and openly that we can find one another and know that we're in this together, and yeah, we're not alone. So that's why Kathara was built. Long, lengthy.
Uh, long way, long way, long way. You have come a long way, Amore, and thank you so much for sharing this because um, I think not only women, but everyone, almost everyone, or someone who has um, been at the rock bottom or would be there, unfortunately, we will have that hope that there is still light at the end of tunnel. Many a times we think that everything is happening bad to us and around us. Maybe
Mm.
this is, I mean, it's our fault, or maybe
Yes.
it's everyone's fault. I mean, we kind of get into that at that zone. But
Mm,
uh, going on and moving forward, what
mm,
kept you moving forward, Amore? I mean, was there that spirituality within you, uh,
mm,
that you were trying to find something that connected with your soul, or something
mm.
else kept you move along and um, then
Yeah.
build Kathara?
Do you mean before I got sober or after? After.
Yeah, before you got sober as well, and after a sober, obviously.
I think before I got sober, the continuing on because yeah, it's quite interesting because I was very suicidal from a very young age. So I had suicidal thoughts probably from like 16 or even younger. I just didn't really see the point in all of this pain and I couldn't make sense to it. So I think that was sort of the question that was driving it all was what's the point of all of this? And so I was asking the really big questions at a young age, and that sort of led me on a spiritual journey. And I read The Power of Now, I think when I was like 12 or 13 or something, and was really on this journey of who is out there, what is out there, why are we here, what is the point? I just couldn't understand that God would create a world where there's so much pain and and that would be it. Like, that's the fun of it. And so I needed to understand, what is the point of all this? So I went on a spiritual journey alongside of all of the things that I was trying to figure out, and I read a lot of books and, went to church and tried a lot of different modalities and religions and, all of them just to try and find answers. And so I think that's one thing that kept me going was, um, looking for answers for the pain, because if I couldn't find it, I think that would have been the moment where I go, "Okay, well, I can't find an answer for the reason for life, so that's me, bye." But I think because I did find more and more answers, through my search, and then as soon as I got sober, I mean, AA is is a very spiritual program, so that was a key part in really igniting my spirituality again, and just knowing that we're here for a reason, and then God is such a personal, interpersonal, and personal relationship on our life that we can have and we can have access to. And now being a yogi, and sort of always being a yogi, but not knowing it, just having a deep understanding for why taking care of our bodies, our mind, our soul, and how these three are interconnected. And um, and then after when I got sober, I think reaping the rewards, even though it was difficult, reaping small rewards and small gains going forward as I went, it kept just getting better and better and better, even though slightly at the time. And I think that's what kept me going because it's almost like you can reflect and go, wow, you have so much aha moments, I feel, in your first years of sobriety. You're just like, whoa, I never saw that perspective and that perspective and that perspective. And it really just opens this whole world of possibility and hope. So, yeah, before it would have been the big questions, and after was the rewards, I would say.
Mhm. Wonderful, wonderful. That's really inspiring, Amore.
Mm,
Um, and mm, talking about Kathara, it's just not a brand.
mm,
It's what I personally can say. It's like a projection of yours. It's a rebellion. It's a reclamation. Um, how do you keep the soul of your mission alive while running the daily grind of a business? People would say that the something as unique and different as spirituality, and
mm,
then something as practical and hard as business and numbers and all that, they
mm,
cannot be merged.
mm. Yeah, I think it's a journey for sure. I think at the beginning I'm very creative. At heart I'm an artist. I'm very Pisces, very dreamy, very in my own Neverland world. My mind's in the clouds. I'm a dreamer. I float on in other realms. So I think for me, it was always a struggle to become more left-brained. I'm not very logical. I'm not very analytical. Maths was not something that I was very skilled at. And so I had to learn these skills. And I think because I was so determined to live a life that I felt worthy of my life, like I knew that I was going to spend my whole life working. And if that's like 70% of my time in my whole life. And so I wanted to make sure that I enjoy that time, regardless of whatever it is that I need to do. I need to enjoy that. And there was so many things that was in our society, like, normal jobs, I would call them, or 9 to 5, that just didn't relate to me. And I just didn't feel like they spoke to my soul's most innest fun, more biggest desire of fun. And I wanted something that was on my terms. Like I wanted to travel a lot and I wanted to live across the globe and move myself around, and I wanted to explore and have adventures, and I wanted to explore spirituality, and I just had such a deep desire to explore and see everything and learn about everything, and also cultures and all those types of things, that I just couldn't be in one place at a time. So that desire of really finding my own way was really at the core of trying to figure out, how am I going to make this work? And I think because that was such a deep desire, I couldn't stop. I couldn't settle in that way for something other than something that was going to light my heart on fire. So the day to day, how I balance the day to day now is I just sit through it. There's discomfort that's going to come up. There's skills that I'm going to have to learn. There are things that I don't know. So I get a coach, I get support, I take courses, I learn. And the more you learn, the more you try to practically implement it. And, my spirituality part now is like it's 50% of that, like, or even more, because I don't try to make decisions on my own, because I always get myself into a little predicament. And so I always try to ask God, or a God of my understanding, how would you direct me today? How can you show me what I need to focus on? Show me effortlessly and easily where I am needed, where I can serve the most, where I am the most beneficial today. Let the people that need to work with me, or the systems or the ideas, let them flow to me, through me, so that you can work through me and I can serve you through what I'm doing. And when I open myself to God's way or God's flow in that way, things just seem to work out, and things just seem to be way more effortless and way less struggle. And so I feel like even though there are hard practical things that I need to do, I ask God's help. And in that way, it takes time, but it makes it easier to than just struggling and thinking you have to do everything on your own.
Mm, I agree. I agree. And some days it definitely may feel like a battle, but uh, I absolutely understand what keeps you going on and on. And more than the perfection, it's all about the progress, every step, every moment, every day by day. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because I found also, like, in yoga, right? It's okay to have desires, and it's okay for us to have these big goals and these big dreams, and all of it, that what we want is allowed. It's encouraged. But we mustn't be so attached to the outcome of the desire, because if we're so attached to the outcome of a desire for it to fill us up or give us something or make us feel a certain way, then we're saying that we're lacking that in our life currently. And when we're in lack, we're really so disconnected from who we truly are, which is, a spark of God and a child of God, and however you want to see it. And when we are truly who we are not in any scarcity. We're not lacking anything. We are joy. We're pure bliss. We're pure love. We're pure power and wisdom and knowledge and everything. So we cannot not be that. But as long as we feel that we're lacking anything, then we have already forgotten that we are that. So I feel like the journey, and I'm saying that now, not that I have mastered this at any in any way, but I feel like it's a concept that I know and I can experience to be true. But it is still hard for me to, or sometimes hard for me to put this practically into measurements. I mean, the whole point of working towards a goal is to get something. So it's fundamentally challenging to think about that concept. But I think that's when we start to struggle, is when we start to put a feeling or an emotion that means something about us on the goal, and ultimately, once you get to the goal, you realize, "Oh, nothing's actually changed, and I still feel the same about myself," and so you just keep chasing something, whereas when you just know that this is within, you don't need to chase it, you just have fun doing what you're doing, and maybe it'll be fun if you get that thing, but it's not about the thing in of itself. What do you think?
Mm. Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that is that. I mean, there, because sometimes I also have found myself battling between intuition and metrics, or the numbers or the performance. Uh, Sometimes, others would question my decision, but I know that, after a lot of inner dialogue and inner conversation, and trust is definitely there. I would have taken a soul led decision, rather than just based on something as practical as, is this good or bad? What will people say, or what will others say? What will my family say?
Mhm.
So,
I
yeah.
like that, yeah, it's more an intuitive decision
Yeah.
instead of a wrong or right. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it in terms of, not really analyzing whether it's gonna be wrong or right. It's just you trusting and have faith that it's the right decision, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice perspective.
And Amore, you are building a movement which is rooted in healing and feminine power. What would you say to, um, I should say everyone, but especially women who still feel that they have to tone it down. They they don't have that liberty to connect with their higher selves, or maybe they have to hide their depth to be taken seriously in the
Mm,
business world, especially, because um, if anybody from the hard business world, they would hear all this, they'll straightforwardly say, ah, this is all woo woo. There's nothing for soul led business or spirituality in business. It's all about numbers and profit and money. That's it.
mm, mm. So what's your question?
Yeah. So, what would you say to all the, women and everyone, almost everyone out there who still feel that they have to hide this particular aspect of their own spirituality, or tone it
Mm,
down, or hide their death
yeah.
seriously?
So I feel like that speaks to me how I was my whole life, is I was constantly toning it down and hiding myself because I felt like I wasn't being gonna be taken seriously and that people are gonna think I'm weird. And I've noticed that the more I lean into my spirituality and the more I talk about it and the more I let it run my life, even though maybe I don't tell everyone about it, or the people that if you're in a 9 to 5, business structure is not necessarily for them to know that how you make your decisions. If you are consulting your God or God of your understanding, if you're consulting that and leaning into being more of that or allowing yoga in your life for you to explore the connection between body, mind, and soul, and really opening yourself up to a spiritual practice and allowing that to lead your more business life. And not necessarily, it's not always, I feel like, necessary to share it if it's not a big part of your purpose like mine. But if it is something that you want to open yourself more up to it, I think as soon as you do and you start to feel the impact thereof, which I immediately felt, and the more you open up to it and the more you allow it, you actually feel like there's nothing woo about this. And I heard a quote that somebody said, the difference, do you know the difference between millionaires and billionaires? And they said the difference is that billionaires have astrologers.
I
So
love that.
astrologers to help them with their business. And it's true. It's backed by research, and there's nothing woo woo about astrology. It's been used for ancient millennia. Um,
Mm.
And you can just look at how science and metaphysics physics and quantum physics is now proving the concepts that the ancient Indians and Vedas and all of that knew millennia ago. And it's more about, I always think about it in this way. It's like, especially with astrology specifically, it's not that it's only astrology, but I always think we know as a fact that the moon, we that the oceans are and the tides are constantly moved by the moon. The moon's position to the earth, right? And somehow it's somehow we have this belief that the moon can move the ocean, which is a largest body of water on the planet, but somehow the 70% of the water inside our body is not being moved by the moon or affected by the moon. And I think it's such a egotistical human mentality to think that way, right? Like we are not affected as humans, but the world is affected by the movement of planets. And I think when I heard that quote, it just kind of solidified the fact that the planets have magnetic fields and are moving around the planets. And there's also a large amount of spirituality that's involved in that because there's a God that is controlling prana, and then when we move prana around in our bodies, in our minds, in our uh, you get access to certain types of understandings and perspectives and knowledge that you wouldn't have access to before. And the more you open up yourself to that, the more you start to feel the workings of that in your life. And I think once you've tasted how effortless life can be when you allow God to um, lead more in your life, you can't go back, I think. For me, I can't go back. Does that help?
No,
Does
I
that clarify?
absolutely agree with you. And this is something once again especially with how there are some clouded judgments around astrology,
Mm,
and of course a lot of fear mongering around it. But if
mm,
we look at it from a very scientific perspective, and how actually the moon, through its gravity and everything, it is moving the ocean water, and we are also of 70% water, so it
mm,
definitely has to affect us.
yeah.
So that is something I learned, and it really, really quite changed my perspective towards looking at astrology. That
Mm.
it is something, probably the source from where I got an idea about it could be wrong. So,
Yeah.
that's why you definitely need that openness to embrace the
Mm.
good part of it.
Yeah. And I also find that the more we think astrology is weird and woo woo, the more we're limiting ourselves in the experience that we get to have in our world. And it's not that it has to be, I mean, if you have a strong belief that, spirituality is not that's against your religion or however your beliefs are, then that's okay. But I think if you are open minded and you are curious, or you know that you are spiritual and you want to explore it more, I think hiding a part of yourself is also a version of self abandonment because you're not allowing yourself to fully be self expressed in the way that you know yourself to be. So it's in a way saying, I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough, and I'm bad, or I'm I'm weird and that's not allowed. And so it's a very large and massive dissociation between yourself and you because you're abandoning that innate part of who you are. And I think it'll just continue to show when you are so dissociated from who you are. I think different places in the world when you have relationships or business or whatever you then try to do, if you're denying your sense of self, it's going to be very hard to have really authentic relationships or authentic experiences in your life in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. So, Amore, before we wrap up this beautiful, beautiful, inspiring, soulful conversation, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and explore more about Kathara and then the wonderful work that you are doing, what will be the best way?
The best way would be on Instagram. I am at Kathara, so k.ata.ra. or at amore.roux. And either of those, both of my Instagrams, and you can find me anytime. You can DM me or send me a message, or if you want to chat about anything that I shared today, I'm always open to welcoming anyone who is exploring these topics and needs someone to just talk to. So thank you.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes. And Amore, thank you for showing us that being real, although it's messy, it can be rising, it can be raw. It's not only in business, but it might just be the most sacred strategy there is. So thank you so much.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sana. I appreciate your time.
And to all the listeners, if today's episode, Amore's journey and her beautiful insights stirred something in you, sit with it, let it move you, and remember that the divine doesn't wait for the perfect plan. It moves when you do. Until next time, keep listening, keep rising, and keep coming home to yourself. This is Cosmic Confluence, and I'm your host, Sana. See you in the field. Thank you.